his favorite vase.
She always says don't play ball in the house.
Pork chops and applesauce. That's swell.
Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. Hey, you guys. Oh, my nose!
Welcome to Here's the Story, a Brady Bunch podcast. Hey, I'm not going to tear this thing apart. It's my favorite show. Episode 13. Is there a doctor in the house? This episode is the halfway point. 12 episodes behind and 12 episodes ahead for the first season. And this completes the initial contract of episodes called for after the show was greenlit to go into production. And they would have to wait and see if it would be renewed for another half season. Well, kinda. There are still 3 episodes that have been filmed but haven't aired yet, and 3 filmed after this one that have already aired. The real contract end episode would have been when they went camping, which is probably why they went on location for that one. And this is also the last episode to air in the 1960s, debuting on December 26th, 1969. Peter comes home from school with the measles, and when Carol calls Mike at work, we get an exterior establishing shot of his work for the first time, and man, that building looks so cool! It was actually the old Beverly Hills Library that has since been torn down, and a new library has been built in its place. And inside, there's that painting of Mike's backyard I mentioned in last episode. Mike tells Carol to call the doctor, and when he comes home, he'll bring Pete some comic books. Later on, we'll see they never end up going to him because Bobby gets them instead. I remember sometimes when my dad would run to the store, he'd bring me home some comic books. I wasn't collecting them yet and had no preferences, so it's interesting to think back on which ones he would pick out for me. You see, he grew up on DC Comics, Superman, Batman, and The Flash in particular, but he always bought me Marvel comics. Random ones, too, like the Fantastic Four and Marvel Tales reprints of Spider-Man from the 60s. My mom got us subscriptions before that to The Incredible Hulk, G.I. Joe, and Star Wars. And even before that, when we originally picked them out for ourselves, we would grab Whitman comics. I got Pink Panther, and my brother got Battle of the Planets. Well, I couldn't get a good look and see which one Bobby was reading. But believe it or not, it actually could have been a Brady Bunch comic book. Yes, after Kitty Carryall and before the Brady Bunch lunchbox hit the stores, the actual second piece of Brady merchandise was a comic book from Dell Publishing. Dell would later become Whitman. Now, this comic only lasted 2 issues, and the first one was cover dated February of 1970, but comic books would be placed on newsstands and spinner racks 3 months before their cover date, which would put that first issue out right here in December of 1969. I'll tell you what happens in that comic in an upcoming episode. Back to this episode, Carol has called the doctor she's always called for her kids to come check on Peter. Yes, in these times, doctors made house calls. The practice started in the 1930s, and by the 40s, 40% of doctors' visits were house calls. 60% by the 60s, when this episode takes place, but it was down to just 5% by 1972, when my older brother was born. I came along 2 years after that and never had a doctor make a house call for me. Then again, we almost never saw a doctor or went to a hospital, and the last time I went was 30 years ago, so I'm not exactly an authority on the subject. Well, now Jan comes home with the measles. When Alice is running from Peter's bedside to Jan's, we get a cool shot from the girls' room, looking through both open doors of the bathroom and on into the boys' room. Jan just wanted to show Alice a picture she's drawn. Eve Plum, who plays Jan, grew up to become an artist in real life. She paints still life images, and some of her paintings now hang in the real-life Brady home. Mike calls the doctor he's always used for the boys to go to the house, and when both doctors arrive and see the kids, chaos ensues. Mike's used a male doctor for the boys, and Carol a female doctor for the girls, but now the man is seeing Jan, and the woman is seeing Peter, and they aren't having it. That's when the other 4 kids come home with the measles. Now, Mike comes home, and we see him do something he's never done before or since. He makes himself a mixed drink. This is the only time we'll ever see anyone in the Brady home with alcohol. The kids are upstairs playing Monopoly and get into an argument about how women are supposed to be nurses and men are supposed to be doctors. I'm in my last month of school, and my teacher is a woman, and she's a doctor. Of course, it's been 52 years since this show aired. There's an extended sequence of each of the kids ringing a different kind of bell while their parents run up and down the stairs with trays of food. That's more grating than funny, because the kids are being too rude and the parents too accommodating. Well, no one can decide on which doctor everyone should switch to until they realize they'll just have to keep multiple doctors. That's when both doctors come back to the house together. They solved the problem themselves. They've combined practices. How convenient. And just in time, too, because now Mike has the measles. Carol already had them years ago, so she can't catch them again, but Alice hadn't, and now she gets them, too. I've never had the measles. That's probably because the vaccine came along in 1971. Some things of note in this episode. The girl's doctor is played by Marion Ross, who would become Mrs. Cunningham on Happy Days 4 years later. She's 92 years old now, still alive, and still working. She's got a credit on IMDb for 2021. Back in the 70s, my brother had a Fonzie bike from Happy Days. I actually met the Fonz actor Henry Winkler in real life. Hey! If you're being eagle-eyed, there's some continuity flubs with glasses moving around the different trays in the stacks of food that Carol is carrying as the camera angles switch back and forth through the scenes. And at the end of the show, Mike is talking about the kids' history with diseases, and when he says that none of them have had shots for distemper, the line sounds like it was recorded at a different time and place and doesn't match whatever his lips are saying on set. Now, this is one of the episodes that must have had heavy rotation because I've seen it a lot and remember always liking it. But this time around, as I'm really dissecting it, I feel that everyone is slightly out of character. And the show is packed with jokes that just aren't funny. So I looked up the writer. It's someone by the name of Ruth Brooks Flippin. She wrote 8 episodes of Gidget, 12 episodes of That Girl, and 4 episodes of Bewitched. A woman writing shows about women. Well, everyone knows that women aren't funny. And they can't be doctors either. No, just kidding. Actually, she had been the script editor on every episode of the Brady Bunch except the pilot, so she must have had some kind of talent. It just wasn't writing. Now, she did go on to write 25 episodes of Days of Our Lives until she died at 59. Well, soap operas aren't known for comedy, so maybe this just wasn't her genre. Until next time.